Good evening. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Jesse Thomas, filling in for Todd Battis tonight. It's Friday, October 17th, and this is CTV News at 6. Here's what's making news tonight. Border security ramps up in our region, with more officers being hired. An historic assault. Moncton's Elmwood Cemetery is hit by shocking vandalism.
It's a fair weather October weekend ahead with a higher chance of some showers and rain next week.
Live from our Maritimes News Center, this is CTV News at 6. Here is Jesse Thomas.
Good evening. The Canada Border Services Agency will soon have more officers posted at ports of entry right across the country, including in our own region. It'll fulfill a campaign promise from last federal election and appease the U.S. government, and it comes just days after the arrest of 3 people in connection to an illegal border crossing in Grand Falls. CTV's Nick Moore has the story.
Chippy and CBSA detector dog handler Jonathan Thomas are giving a demonstration on how to examine a vehicle at the Belleville, New Brunswick border crossing near Woodstock. There's a firearm hidden, which Chippy has no problem sniffing out. Today, the federal government is reaffirming its commitment to hire 1,000 more Canada Border Services Agency officers, with more details to come in November's budget. Sylvie Cormier is superintendent at the Woodstock Port of Entry.
It very much helps when you have more employees. We're able to do more searches and get more firearms, illegal drugs, and keep inadmissible people outside of the country.
The federal government says it will also increase the stipend for CBSA recruits and add additional benefits for CBSA officers and other first responders in accordance with their responsibilities. Right now, it is unclear exactly how many new CBSA officers will be coming to New Brunswick.
I mean, I can certainly speak to St. John, New Brunswick and Port St. John, and I mean, obviously Port St. John is growing exponentially. You know, there'll be more CBSA support and services there.
St. John Kennebecasis MP Wayne Long, who is also Secretary of State responsible for the Canada Revenue Agency and financial institutions, says today's announcement is long overdue.
Our world is different. We have more risks. We need to protect our border. We need to strengthen our country. We need to protect our sovereignty.
Yesterday, New Brunswick RCMP confirmed the arrest of 3 people in connection with an illegal border crossing in Grand Falls back in April. Police allege the 3 individuals were conspiring to bring people from China into Canada with the end goal of smuggling them into the U.S. Wayne Long says today's announcement is not directly related, but points to why additional officers are needed. Nick Moore, CTV News, Belleville, New Brunswick.
2 people are dead following a head-on collision outside of Dartmouth this morning. It happened just after 7 a.m. on Highway 107 near Mineville. A Mazda 3 and a Kona traveling in the same direction collided. The Mazda 3 then collided head-on with another car traveling in the opposite direction. A 31-year-old woman from Gatesbrook and a 48-year-old man from Porters Lake, traveling in different cars, were pronounced dead at the scene. 2 passengers from each of those cars were taken to hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. The driver of the Kona was not injured. The cause of the crash, it remains under investigation. And a shocking discovery in Moncton this morning. Staff at Elmwood Cemetery arrived to find dozens of historic headstones knocked over into the ground. Police are investigating what the cemetery's president calls one of the worst acts of vandalism he's ever seen. CTV's Josh Smith has the story.
Broke a big piece of granite off there.
When Jim Rogers arrived at work this morning at the Elmwood Cemetery, he immediately noticed something was wrong.
I noticed 2 or 3 headstones that were laying on the ground that yesterday were standing. I discovered after going over the hill, and there was 40 headstones down, and most of them are in our heritage section.
That heritage section in Moncton's largest cemetery is over 200 years old. Superintendent Sarah Hope says the monument stood the test of time until now.
There's some stones that date back to late 1800s. I think that's the most upsetting part, is that they focused on the older section, that we have a lot of difficulty with restoring them back to how they were.
Repairing the damage will take weeks and won't be cheap. Rogers estimates the cost could be in the thousands.
Oh, even at $10,000 each and you got 40 on the ground, well, pretty easy math. You know, you got $500,000 of monuments laying on the ground.
The larger stones would weigh over 1,000 pounds.
These ones, they had to use a lot of force to get them over, and they definitely had an intent to destroy these stones, and I don't know why they would do that.
And Rogers says the emotional toll is just as heavy.
How do you feel that it would make a family feel?
Oh, I think they'd feel violated. There are people that have no respect or don't care about anything. Sad that they consider destroying property as fun.
Police are canvassing the neighborhood for leads. CTV reached out to the RCMP, but they did not get back to us before news time. Josh Smith, CTV News, Moncton.
A St. John man has been charged with nearly a dozen offenses relating to assault, possession of weapons, and drugs. Police say officers were called Wednesday night by a woman who said she was assaulted by her boyfriend shortly after police stopped the suspect in a vehicle. After the man was arrested, police say a loaded handgun was seized along with cocaine worth nearly $14,000 and scales. A 25-year-old man has been charged with 11 offenses, and he remains in custody.
Get the Maritime's top stories, breaking news alerts, and watch live. Download the CTV News app.
Thousands of bottles of water are being delivered for distribution to residents across the Halifax Regional Municipality with dry wells. CTV's Jonathan McGuinness tonight looks into the 2-month-long program.
The noon water delivery at the Beaverbank Fire Station is right on time. This has become a common scene across HRM as the city supplies drinking water for residents whose wells have gone dry.
We go from Old Sambo Road right up to Port Dufferin.
That's a 2-hour trip each way. During the drive, Howard Ellis sees firsthand how low water levels are across the municipality.
You go down through Sheet Harbor and you can see the river that used to be there. It used to be a waterfall. There's no water running in it right now. That's how dry things are.
To help, the city is bringing in water by the pallet. So far, more than 23,000 cases and nearly 5,000 4-liter jugs of drinking water have been dispersed.
It is serious. It is something that's very worrisome.
Councillor Kathy Deagle-Gammon's District 1 riding is mostly rural. The vast majority of residents have wells. She says historically there were dry spells, but nothing like this year.
I think that the drought now has just exacerbated some of those issues. So you're going to see the water wagon more and more and more in the communities.
It's such a concern. Deagle-Gammon says it must become part of the discussion when considering development in certain areas of the city.
We got to be looking at, these areas, are they serviced municipally by water and wastewater? And if they're not, and you're looking at what is the capacity, of wells in the community.
For now, those wells are dry. Water deliveries will continue to be made to fire stations and community centers in the affected areas. And Jesse, the city's water distribution efforts are being reassessed on a week-by-week basis to determine how long the city can continue to supply water to residents whose wells have gone dry. Jesse.
Yeah, thanks, John. That's CTV's Jonathan McGuinness reporting from Halifax tonight. All right, here's a live look at Parsboro, where it's still 12 degrees. Let's bring in Kaylin Mitchell and get a first look at the weather forecast for the weekend. Here's Kaylin. How's it looking, Kaylin?
Yeah, well, not enough rain in that weekend forecast. It's an ongoing issue for us. We do start off with some cool and cloudy conditions. Sun should start to break through a little bit more as we progress through the weekend, especially for New Brunswick and western areas of Nova Scotia. In behind me here, we're looking at some rainfall reports over the past couple of days in the Maritimes, so we did have some areas of showers moving through. In most cases, that rain amounted to amounts of only trace to several millimeters, which isn't really going to help out things, such as dry wells, for example. There were a few locations that did finish a little bit above the 10-millimeter mark, including a couple locations in the Annapolis Valley of Nova Scotia, parts of Cumberland County in that province, and a few spots in New Brunswick, southern areas of New Brunswick, including Sussex, picking up 24 millimeters of rain, and Miramichi, which reported 13 millimeters. Now, there's a little bit of light drizzle around for this evening and tonight, but it's not really going to help out again with the overall rainfall amounts. Temperatures are cool heading through this evening. They're mostly around the high single digits and low teens. rains. They're especially feeling a little bit cool if you're out in that wind, which is certainly on the breezy side. It is being sustained right now in most cases between 10 and 20 kilometers per hour, though a few exposed coastal areas in some winds between 30 and 40 and a few gusts between 30 and 40 kilometers per hour, except again a couple coastal spots where those wind gusts are peaking closer to 50. The winds diminish a little bit as we move through tonight, and then tomorrow very similar for the region, including the direction, which will be out of the north and northeast. A lot of cloud cover expected to be around for tonight, a little bit of patchy drizzle underneath it, and some of that cloudiness will linger into the start of the weekend. Talk more about the weekend though and how things are sort of setting up for next week when I'm back a little bit later on. Jesse.
All right, a lot of people want to hear that. We'll see you back here in around 15 minutes time or so. Of the major city centers across the country, Halifax is now seen as one of the most expensive to live in. And for university students, the struggle to afford housing is pushing some of them to the limit. CTV's Hafsa Arif tells us how rising rents, tuition, and food prices are leaving many wondering how they'll get through the school year.
In a city already out of reach for many full-time workers, Halifax's students are struggling to find and keep a place to live.
It is drastically gone up over the last few years, and students are this vulnerable population within a population of already vulnerable people. Dalhousie
University Student Union insists housing pressures have become unbearable, forcing students to work long hours and live in cramped conditions.
Because I'm living in residence right now, but I know that's for second year I'm going to be moving out, and I've been doing some research on what places I could live, and it's definitely not cheap. It's definitely not cheap, and it's almost compares to even like Toronto. So it's definitely on my mind, and it's scary.
Students doubling up is becoming more common, even squeezing into makeshift spaces to make rent.
These houses have been subdivided into so many different units, but what hasn't been accounted for here is that cost of living, right? These are still staying at this high market rate, and it's not dropping down.
Some students have been moving constantly throughout their academic careers just to find something they can afford.
Like, it's hard to get something within like below 1,000 basically, unless you're in like a very small attic.
And others say independence feels almost impossible.
Even if I were to like after I graduate, I still consider living with my parents for a while, since housing nowadays is like really expensive.
The province says it's spending more to create new student housing, but the union is noticing a few students already choosing to skip semesters or not study in Nova Scotia at all.
The common messaging has been, okay, why would I come out east when I could live in a larger city and be paying more affordable rent?
The union says higher education is coming at a hefty cost, which is why they're planning on delivering a letter to the Premier next month, calling on stronger rental protections and meaningful action on housing. Jesse?
All right, thanks for that, Hafsa. That's CTV's Hafsa Arif reporting live in Halifax's North End tonight. An emergency homeless shelter in Fredericton got the green light by council this week to remain at a location on the New Brunswick exhibition grounds. That decision brings with it some mixed reactions because of something called compassion fatigue. CTV's Laura Brown has more.
This site will continue to be an emergency homeless shelter this winter. The building on the Fredericton exhibition grounds became a temporary shelter last year. It's helped 285 people so far, including new Canadians, Indigenous people, and veterans. But there are some who've petitioned for it to be moved elsewhere.
We know full well that we're a challenge to the community. We're a challenge for people who are becoming what we classify in our business as compassion fatigued.
Compassion fatigue is generally a feeling of exhaustion from the stress of caring for others. It's become common among some property and business owners, especially in the downtown, who have relayed stories to CTV News about open drug use, people trespassing, and damage to their property. A business owner in this area didn't feel comfortable speaking with me on camera, but did share with me that their business has been broken into multiple times and that generally there are days where they feel unsafe, even in the middle of the day. But they followed all of that up with that they want to see people get the help that they need.
You have mothers and daughters that walk by and people are on the sidewalk doing drugs, and it makes them feel unsafe.
You're hearing just the voice of a local business employee. They also didn't feel comfortable being on camera for fear of putting the business in harm's way.
I found them inside a dumpster, sleeping on a hot day. which is extremely dangerous in case the garbage truck comes and, you know, you get emptied into a garbage truck. I've had to call on overdoses. I've had people overdose on the sidewalk where I've seen it and had to call in an ambulance, and then an ambulance comes and you're not sure if they're going to make it or...
Some choose not to stay in a shelter, which makes it difficult to help them.
I feel there's a lot of compassion in the city, and I also feel that there are a lot of folks that are frustrated that we continue to be setting up emergency shelters as opposed to finding real solutions.
Mayor Kate Rogers says a task force is working on finding permanent solutions.
We see this as a way to solution find and to move out of that place of just frustration and try to get something done so that this isn't our reality.
Laura Brown, CTV News, Fredericton.
And a reminder, for more on this story or any other you see on this program, visit our website, ctvnewsatlantic.ca. And the 25th anniversary of the World March of Women was marked by over 200 people in downtown Fredericton today. And with help of a police escort, the marchers retraced the steps of the original march 25 years ago. In the downtown, they say there's been lots of progress since the year 2000, but there's still some work to do, specifically on the issues of pay equity and gender-based violence. All right, still to come, we'll speak with a forestry management expert about this year's wildfire season and what can be learned from all the fires we saw around here. And a mostly cloudy and cool night ahead for the Maritimes. Kaylin is back with all the details in your full weather forecast. But next, immigration increase.
I can tell you Nova Scotia's getting a significant amount.
Why Ottawa is upping immigration numbers in Nova Scotia after initially slashing them in half. That's coming up after the break. Welcome back. Ottawa is approving more immigration spots after provinces requested larger allocations, reversing recent nationwide cuts. As CTV's Callum Smith reports, Nova Scotia is still targeting its immigration to address two key sectors.
The increase comes after a recent cutback. Nova Scotia's total immigration allocation was chopped in half this year compared to last, part of a similar move across Canada. Ottawa then bumped up the allotment in one of those streams this week.
I can tell you Nova Scotia's getting a significant amount.
The province confirms to CTV News the increase is 559 placements, and it's in the provincial nominee program, bringing the total immigration allocation to 3,709. Federal Immigration Minister and Nova Scotia MP Lena Metledge-Diab says the ask for more immigrants came from provinces.
Yes, they all asked for it.
Nova Scotia's Immigration Department declined our interview request Friday, but said the province remains committed to focusing on key sectors like healthcare and construction. That's exactly what this woman, who immigrated to Canada in 1998, wants to see.
We should bring more people who are skilled in the areas where we need them.
But she warns.
We need more infrastructure here in Halifax because the traffic is getting so bad and there are more people coming in.
She's not the only one hesitant about having the infrastructure to keep growing.
Sometimes I think maybe we don't, but I'm not 100%.
The Construction Association of Nova Scotia says responsible immigration is a must.
We're really pleased with it. We weren't supporters of the cuts the way they were made originally. We're frankly irresponsible and without consultation.
And while their workforce shortage of 2,500 to 3,000 people certainly won't be solved entirely by immigration, he says it will help.
If we're in the 10 to 20% of that number, I think we're in a comfortable zone. There's a bit of a race to support the projects that we currently have, support future projects, then replace the workers that we need to replace over the next decade.
Restaurants were left out of the provincial nominee program in 2024, but say while Nova Scotia isn't alone in targeting immigration workforces, their industry is part of the solution too.
You're not going to attract a doctor in a small town if the small town doesn't have services, if there's no coffee shop, if there's no restaurant.
Ottawa said the increase takes effect immediately. Callum Smith, CTV News, Halifax.
And it was a bit of a breezy day out there today. Kaylin has the details on what we can expect this weekend. That's going to come up next. Some decent wave action we see outside at the Western Head Lighthouse. Your weather forecast coming up at the break. Stick around. Okay, here is some decent wave action near the Western Head Lighthouse south of Liverpool, Nova Scotia. That's a nice shot.
It is.
Look at that.
Yeah, you can see the cloud cover broke up a little bit around the area this afternoon, and seeing some peaks of blue sky there. And tomorrow's cloud conditions are going to be very much the same for Nova Scotia, Prince Edward Island. Maybe a little bit more sunshine expected.
Okay.
In New Brunswick.
Yeah, kind of a fair October day, I guess.
It's not too bad for an October weekend.
Right.
More on that in a moment. Let's take a quick look at weather conditions across the country before we get back to our forecast here in the Maritimes. Oh, mid-teens. They're showing up around parts of the south coast of BC. Victoria right now sitting at 15 degrees with some sunshine. 14 at Vancouver. Mix of sun and cloud up at Fort St. John sitting at 12. Into the prairies, Calgary 7 degrees and a mix of sun and cloud. Low teens for southern areas of Saskatchewan and Manitoba. Up north right now, Whitehorse sitting at 6. Yellowknife is reporting a cold rain falling with a temperature at 2 degrees. Iqaluit 0 and seeing some partly cloudy conditions. Sudbury in Ontario reporting a little bit of rain moving through, sitting at 10 there. It's 12 at Montreal and 13 at Quebec City. Fredericton and Halifax right now sitting at 12, 11 at Charlottetown, and St. John's reporting some rain and 7 degrees. Taking a look at our forecast timeline, we saw, or you probably, if you stepped outside, saw some of the cloudiness around for today. That's going to be sticking around for tonight. We'll call it a mostly cloudy night for most of the region, the exception being up in the northwestern corner of New Brunswick, where that cloud cover is expected to clear a little bit, and because of that, temperatures for that part of the Maritimes will be getting a little bit chillier compared to the rest of the region. Starting off the day for tomorrow, mostly cloudy for Prince Edward Island, Nova Scotia, eastern and southern areas of New Brunswick, maybe a little bit of patchy drizzle, very, very light precipitation underneath that cloud cover, mix of sun and cloud for the northwestern half of New Brunswick. And many areas of New Brunswick get over to a mix of sun and cloud for tomorrow, but remaining on the cloudier side for the southeast of that province, Prince Edward Island and Nova Scotia. Though for those areas, you could see the sun peek through a little bit at times during the day. There should be a little bit more in the way of some clearing, or at least some breakup of that cloud cover as we move through Saturday night and into Sunday. Taking a look at winds in the forecast for Saturday, they'll be out of the north and northeast, breezy to gusty, sustained in a lot of cases between 10 and 20 kilometers per hour, with some of the gusts ranging up between 20 and 50. The higher end for those wind gusts most likely on exposed areas of the coastline of Nova Scotia and the northern coastline of Prince Edward Island. Taking a look at low temperatures in the forecast for tonight, most of the lows will be falling into a range of 5 to 10 degrees. The exception again, that northwestern corner of New Brunswick getting a little bit chillier with some lows between 0 and 4. Highs in the forecast for tomorrow, northern New Brunswick between 12 and 16, with central and southern parts of the province with high temperatures as well, ranging from the low to mid-teens. Some milder temperatures around St. Stephen, even Campobello could be close to 17 degrees. Prince Edward Island for tomorrow with high temperatures close to 12. It's going to be a mostly cloudy day. Possibility of a little bit of patchy drizzle, as there will be in eastern areas of Nova Scotia. Highs to 12 to 14 for Cape Breton, and mostly 13 to 15 degrees for eastern parts of the mainland. Northern and central areas of Nova Scotia tomorrow, 12 for Amherst, 14 for Truro, 15 for the city centres Halifax and Dartmouth, as well as Musquodoboit Harbour, close to 14 for Chester and Lunenburg. Moving down the south shore, a little bit milder around Liverpool and Shelburne, close to 16 degrees for those communities, and then 14 at Yarmouth, the Annapolis Valley tomorrow with a high temperature near 13 degrees. Let's take a look at the extended forecast. Let's find out when we got our next shot at seeing some rain and some showers in the region. So not much through this weekend. For New Brunswick, it's kind of clearing to a mix of sun and cloud for the end of the weekend and the start of next week. Temperatures turning a little bit milder as well. Mid to high teens in the forecast actually from Monday. And then a front moves in from the southwest on Tuesday, and that looks like it'll bring some showers to the region. There's a chance of some lingering showers behind that system for Wednesday, and the possibility of a round of rain on Thursday of next week, with another low pressure system arriving. After that, cooler and a mix of sun and cloud on Friday. For Nova Scotia and the outlook coming up on Sunday, a mix of sun and cloud, high temperatures around the mid-teens. Mid to high teens on Monday with a mix of sun and cloud, and then some showers expected on Tuesday. A chance of showers on Wednesday of next week, and then rain possible on Thursday, before it looks like there'll be some partial clearing on Friday with temperatures cooling off a little bit. And for Prince Edward Island, the forecast coming up for the end of the weekend on Sunday, expect some further cloudy periods, so with some sunny breaks, a high near 14 degrees, up to 16 though on Monday with a mix of sun and cloud. Then we get into a chance of showers, just a chance of showers for Prince Edward Island on Tuesday and Wednesday of next week, with highs of around 16. Possibility of that rain on Thursday, and then a mix of sun and cloud on Friday. Jesse.
All right, thanks, Kalen. You're not done yet, though, right? We'll check in with you later for the weekend wake-up weather.
You bet.
All right. Still ahead, Katie Kelly drops by with some live concert news on the scene. But next, we'll talk about what we can learn from one of the worst wildfire seasons the region has ever seen. Stay with us.
Okay, so coming back after the weekend, 7 a.m., get that keyword for Virgin Radio's 5K a day.
Yeah, good luck to you as well. Your chance to win $100 in groceries. That's going to be around 7:30. Good luck. Have a good weekend.
And welcome back. The Maritimes and Atlantic Canada saw its share of wildfires burning this summer. Some of them, including the Long Lake wildfire in Annapolis County, burned deeper, hotter, and longer than any other wildfire we've seen around here. Scientists say it's not just climate change and the drought conditions that's causing this wildfire danger, but also the way our forests are managed. Let's bring in Dr. Anthony Taylor. He's an expert in forestry at the University of New Brunswick, who researches and studies how climate change and forest composition all impact the risk of forest fires. He joins us tonight from Fredericton. Thanks for being here, Anthony. How was your summer?
It was good, Jesse. I had a good summer, but as you can imagine, it was a busy summer as well, given all the conditions with weather and how it affected our forest here in the Maritimes.
No kidding. You know, it's October now, but we had several major forest fires still burning out of control in Nova Scotia and one in New Brunswick. I think that fact may have shocked some people to learn this, but, you know, I'm wondering if this is kind of the new normal.
Yeah, well, you know, I don't know if the new normal is the right word, but it's definitely we should expect more weather like this into the future. And that's largely a consequence of inaction on climate change over the past 20 or 30 years. Like the weather that we're seeing this year, that's behind a lot of the fire activity and the drought activity that we're witnessing and observing here in the Maritimes, is primarily related to climate change. And there's a certain amount of climate change now baked into the system, so we can expect a certain amount of warming over the next 20 or 30 years. And so we can also, with that, expect years with more weather like we experienced this past summer.
Right, incredible drought conditions, drier than we've seen for a long time. But I'm wondering, from your research, what are some of the other biggest factors that are driving this increase in wildfire activity here in the Maritimes?
Well, when it comes to the wildfire situation in particular, like the single biggest factor driving whether or not we experience wildfire is the weather. Like, you know, and the weather is controlled by climate. So you need to have weather that's, you know, warm and dry, and that's what's conducive to wildfire. The next biggest factor after that, of course, is ignition. And one thing to keep in mind with the Maritimes is that, like, more than 90% of our fires that do occur, including this year, are from human ignition, human starts. So, you know, like I like to say, in order to control this, obviously we want to try to reduce and stop climate change. But the next best thing after that is to be fire smart around the woods. You remember Smokey Bear, you know, only you could stop a forest fire, and that's never been truer than ever.
Right. First, you mentioned climate change, the climate, the environment, the hotter, drier summers, versus, say, the way our forests are managed. How are they combining to make the current conditions that we see in our forests?
Well, just like as we were discussing, after like the weather, of course, being the most important factor, and then the next thing being ignition. The other thing that comes into play then is, the condition of the forest, the composition of the forest, and how we manage the forest. Those are things that also influence, you know, the amount of wildfire or the intensity of wildfire. And so things like forest composition, they do matter. Forests that are dominated by more hardwoods, you know, mixed wood type forests, they're less flammable than dense conifer forest. So if you have a landscape dominated by more conifers, then when you're in a good fire year, then that's a landscape that's going to be more vulnerable to wildfire.
We're seeing some images on our screen while you're chatting there, some of the forests and the coniferous trees that are there. You've warned in some of your research that replanting softwood species after clear cuts can make our forests more flammable or perhaps vulnerable to forest fire dangers. How has clear cutting practices increased the wildfire risk around here?
Well, the linkage between clear cutting and wildfire, I wouldn't say is as clear. You know, where it comes into play would be that if you clear cut an area and you plant it with conifers, which is common practice here because that's what our industry relies on primarily is conifers, well, then you're planting a forest that is more vulnerable to wildfire when you have weather conditions that are conducive to wildfire. So that is something to think about moving forward. I'm not suggesting that we stop planting conifers by any means because it's an important feedstock to our industry. But if you're a private woodlot owner and you have a woodlot that's a large continuous softwood area, you may want to consider maybe breaking that up and to either planting some hardwoods in with that, or encouraging hardwoods, or strategically designing your woodlot so that you have conifer stands mixed with hardwood stands to act as a natural fire break.
Yeah. Let me jump into this question. We're quickly running out of time, unfortunately. But if you could change one thing about how, say, Nova Scotia or New Brunswick manages their forests, what do you think would make the biggest difference in reducing future wildfire risk?
Well, the biggest thing that would make the biggest difference is if we all took climate change more seriously and made a stronger attempt to reduce the amount of climate change that's happening. But on the management side of things, I think that what we're going to need to do and think about more seriously as a society is, things like when managing the forest, ensuring that there's, adequate diversity, that we have hardwood stands, that we have mixed wood stands, and strategically use those as fire breaks, in amongst our softwood stands.
I think it's safe to say that these fires are becoming more on the regular. In 2023, we saw the worst wildfire in Nova Scotia. This summer, we saw the longest burning event in our history. But it's also impacting a lot of people's lives. I think of the people that are having to move, the populations being spread out to evacuate, the air quality. But we also weren't allowed to go into the woods for 3 weeks here in Nova Scotia. This is really playing an impact and maybe ruining people's summers. I'm wondering, what can we learn from this? And is there a new approach we should be taking?
Well, I agree with what the province has done there in terms of the fire ban this summer. And actually, it goes back to an earlier point we were talking about how, next to the weather, the next most important thing affecting wildfires occurring is ignition. And like I was saying, most of the ignitions that occur are human caused. And so a lot of the fires that we're experiencing is because of
human carelessness,
ignition. Well, yeah. So again, like being smart in the forest when you're planning and working the forest. But, if you're in times of extreme dryness and fire risk, then, that's when those policies, though, they do come into play and they're useful because it reduces the amount of exposure of the forest to human ignition in that case.
I know it was pretty hard for a lot of people not to be able to go into the woods for 3 weeks' time. And hopefully we don't have to go back there. But unfortunately, we'll have to leave it there as well, Dr. Taylor. I want to thank you for joining us. This is a big topic and it's on a lot of people's minds. So thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for your interest and thanks for having me, Jesse.
Right on. That's forestry expert and researcher Anthony Taylor. We'll have to go to commercial break now, but there's much more news on the other side. Stick around. In the Lifeline tonight, the link between hidden fat and artery damage. CTV's Amanda Debison has more.
The correlation between overweight adults and artery damage is well documented, but new data suggests that hidden fat within the abdomen and around the liver can clog the arteries of individuals who outwardly appear healthy. That's according to a new Canadian study published in Communications Medicine. The study was led by researchers at McMaster University in Hamilton, who wanted to learn more about the effects of a buildup of two types of hidden body fat, visceral and liver fat. The findings suggest that those with what's often called a skinny fat body type, which is people with a normal or below normal BMI, but a higher proportion of body fat than is considered healthy, are more at risk of artery damage than previously thought. Researchers say these findings also demonstrate the need for more sophisticated ways of determining a so-called healthy body weight beyond BMI. Health Canada is issuing a recall for a brand of tankless water heaters over the risk of carbon monoxide poisoning. It applies to the VRS and VRP models of the Vesta tankless hot water heater and certain models of the VRS and VRP Plus. The agency says the exhaust duct can crack, allowing gases to escape into the home. At high enough levels, carbon monoxide can lead to serious injury or death. Health Canada says nearly 3,500 of the units were sold in this country between 2017 and July of this year. You're told to immediately stop using it and contact the company, who will send a technician to repair it. Finally, new findings from space missions are giving us a fresh look at vision changes. When astronauts spend a lot of time in space, some experience blurry vision and changes in the back of the eye. A new study in the journal JAMA Ophthalmology looked at 30 long-term astronauts and found that those who were nearsighted before launch were more likely to see their vision shift in the opposite direction while in space. Experts say that's because nearsighted eyes tend to be softer and more flexible, making them more likely to change shape in zero gravity. However, that flexibility didn't seem to affect other eye changes, like swelling in the retina. With Health and Medical News, I'm Amanda Debison for the Lifeline.
All right, with that music, we know we're on the scene, and Katie Kelly's here.
Hello,
Hey,
happy
Katie.
Friday.
Happy Friday. Now, the holidays continue to get a whole lot more musical.
Yes, Bruce Guthrow's Songwriter Circle is back this holiday season, hosted by Dylan Guthrow, and this year's lineup is stacked, so check this out. Donovan Woods, Gordy Sampson, Emily Balvey. It is a stacked lineup, like I said, and it's happening for 2 nights, December 12th and 13th, in the Bruce Guthrow Theatre at Casino Nova Scotia in Halifax. Intimate storytelling and just a really fun night all around.
And here's an opportunity to ring in the new year and East Coast style.
Yes, yes. Casino Nova Scotia is throwing the biggest party of the year, featuring Rankin McGuinness and the Broken Reeds. The Music Nova Scotia Entertainer of the Year is bringing his big sound and high energy show to the Bruce Guthrow Theatre live on December 31st. Doors open at 10 and the show starts at 11, and the countdown to 2026 starts there. You can go get your tickets online.
And 'tis the season for a great music and giving back.
That's right. Yeah. Some of the Maritime's finest artists, including Misha Bruger-Gosman-Lee and Mark Riley, are coming together for a special IWK Foundation Christmas music CD release concert. It all happens November 4th at 7:30 at the Al Whittle Theatre in Wolfville, featuring a night of festive performances to support the IWK Foundation. Tickets are on sale, with every dollar going to the IWK. Don't miss this holiday celebration of music, community, and heart.
Wow, you were right. So much great talent around here, and it shows to check in. Now, how about a new season of Symphony Nova Scotia shows that are getting underway?
Yes, yes. So lots happening, lots to look forward to. McMaster with her daughter Mary Frances have 2 shows coming up November 1st and 2nd. Other performances include Queens of Rock and Soul, A Gunning and Cormier Christmas, and The Nutcracker. You can go online for the full Symphony Nova Scotia lineup. Mary Frances there is wearing a cast. She is not anymore.
Just noticed that.
Just in case anybody's saying, what happened to Mary Frances? This
playing
video.
the fiddle too hard. She's playing the piano there, but she's obviously
she's an amazing fiddler too. Yeah.
All right, and how about one for the blooper reel, Katie?
Yes, yes. So we've all seen the new Tim Hortons commercials with Sid, Nate, and Brad. But now Tim's is sharing some of the behind-the-scenes moments on social media.
This one kills me, yeah.
They captured Sid trying to keep it together, and they captioned it, making the kid laugh. Tim Hortons is serving up coffee and comedy gold with all of these commercials, Jesse.
Yeah, I mean, what a cast of characters there, those 3.
I love it so much.
You can't call them the 3 Stooges. They're very good athletes in that, but funny guys in their own right, too.
Yeah, pretty awesome.
Great. Thank you, Katie. Let's take a look at tonight's primetime lineup, shall we?
With Crash and Sarah Betts.
Hey, to kick off the week next week, a glittery gift for you from Spicer Cole with the Move Mystery Wheel.
And we've got our final $20,000 winner with Move Stream Big.
All right, to business news now. On the markets, the Dow ended the day up 238 points. One of the big Canadian banks is cutting jobs. BNN Bloomberg's Morella Fernandez has more on that.
Scotiabank hasn't shared how many people it's laying off, but jobs are being lost across its banking unit. The head of the bank's Canadian operation says today marks an inflection point in the company's quest to build a better, more profitable bank. 2 years ago, the bank cut 3% of its global workforce before embarking on a restructuring plan. Here are the closing numbers for the day. The Canadian dollar is up to 71.36. West Texas Intermediate crude is up to 57.15. Western Canadian Select is down $1 to 46.55. And the TSX dropped 350 points today, ending the week at 30,108. Those are your business headlines. I'm Morella Fernandez.
All right, let's go out to Kaylin Mitchell now, who's out on the weather deck for the weekend wake-up weather segment.
Yeah, thank you, Jesse. So it is breezy, it is cool, and it is a cloudy evening, Friday evening for the Maritimes. Going to carry on that way for tonight and into the start of the weekend. Let's take a look at our viewer picture for tonight. And despite the cloud cover that was around much of the region today, conditions were just right to get this great picture sent in by Bud Lethbridge. It was taken on the trails. Bud was out biking near Lower Sackville, Nova Scotia. So I want to thank Bud very much for taking the time to share the picture here. We got a nice pond and fall colors surrounding it. Lower Sackville for tomorrow. You know, very much like today, it's still going to be breezy. It'll be cloudy with occasional sunny breaks and a high temperature around 14 degrees. Day planner for tomorrow around the Maritime region, aside from the northwestern quarter of New Brunswick, which will be a little bit more on the clear side, quite a bit of cloud cover around. There's some patchy drizzle and fog. Morning temperatures mid to high single digits, a few around 10, 11 degrees. And then in the afternoon, the sun breaks through a little bit more for the province of New Brunswick, and because of that, they'll have some high temperatures, especially in western parts of the province. They get up towards the mid-teens, low teens for much of the remainder of Nova Scotia and Prince Edward Island, and for those two areas remaining more on the cloudy side. Jesse.
All right, thanks for that, Kaylin. Finally tonight, for one Boston man, it was like finding a lifetime of rare baseball cards all in one collection. He paid less than $100 for all the cards, which are worth thousands of dollars.
Everything from Cy Young to Christy Mathewson, John McGraw, all bunch of Hall of Famers on there.
Tom Conrad came across a baseball card collection from the early 1900s and was like hitting a home run for him. The cards came from an estate sale at an old house in Rhode Island. He spotted them on Facebook Marketplace for just $75 US. Now, the former owner had glued the cards to the inside of a wooden chest, and some of the best finds in the collection include a 1909 Cy Young card that's estimated to be worth around $2,000 on its own. Conrad is currently auctioning them off, the cards on Facebook. The top bids are sitting around $6,700. Wow, interesting. All right. I know a lot of people are watching the Blue Jays game tonight. All right, that's a look at our day here, and Kayla and I, well, we'll be back at 11:30 for all your late news. In the meantime, you can visit our website, ctvnewsatlantic.ca. It's always updating, and we'll be updating all weekend as well. We'll leave you now tonight with some scenes from Grand Prairie, Nova Scotia, and the names of everyone who helps bring our programming to you folks at home. I'm Jesse Thomas. Thanks for watching, everyone. Have a great night.
CTV News, the Maritime's #1 newscast.